12 cars banned from garages, and here's why. That's the honest truth of it, folks. 12 vehicles that the federal government has flat out told people not to park inside their own garage. Not because somebody's being fussy, but because these machines can catch fire sitting there turned off, doors locked, keys on the hook in your kitchen. About 1.1 million vehicles across this country are under what they call a do not park inside order right now, and the recall bill for all of it runs somewhere around $1.8 billion. Let me set the table for you before we start the countdown. In just one cluster of these cases, investigators tallied 36 engine fires, 12 battery explosions, and 7 people put in the hospital. 7. And here's the part that ought to make the hair on your neck stand up. Some of these vehicles caught fire again after the manufacturer had already done the so-called fix. Think about that. You take your truck or your SUV into the dealer, you wait months for parts, they hand it back and say it's all sorted, and the thing still burns down your garage. Now I've spent 40 years turning wrenches on diesel trucks, and I'll tell you plain, this is not how it used to be. An old vehicle, a real simple one, you could park it in the barn and walk away for a month, and it'd sit there cold and dead and harmless. These new machines are computers on wheels, packed with batteries and control modules and relays that stay awake and drawing power long after you shut the door. And when one of those little parts fails wrong, it doesn't just leave you stranded, it burns. I'm Earl, and I've been obsessed with cars and tinkering the better part of my life. So if that's your kind of talk, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. So grab your coffee and settle in, because I'm going to walk you through all 12 of these fire traps, one at a time, and tell you exactly what the dealers and the manufacturers would rather you didn't hear. Number 12, the Hyundai Kona Electric, model years 2019 and 2020. This is the one that got the whole ball rolling in a lot of folks' minds. The safety people over at NHTSA put out emergency warnings after 13 battery fires around the globe. 3 of those happened in South Korea. Cars sitting at a full charge, plugged in overnight, nobody near them. 2 more in Canada, 1 over in Europe, and every single one of them was turned off when it lit up. Turned off. Now the cause, once they dug into it, came down to the lithium-ion batteries built by LG Energy Solutions. Inside those cells were what they call folded anode tabs, and that folding caused an internal short circuit. A short circuit inside a battery pack that big is a fire waiting for a place to happen. Let me explain that in plain shop talk, because the manufacturers love to bury this in jargon. An anode tab is a little strip of metal inside the cell that carries current in and out. When it's folded over wrong at the factory, it can poke and rub where it shouldn't, and eventually it bridges 2 things that were never meant to touch. Once that bridge forms, you get heat, and heat in a lithium cell doesn't just warm up and stop, it runs away with itself. They call it thermal runaway, and once it starts, you cannot put it out with a garden hose because the battery makes its own oxygen while it burns. Hyundai ended up recalling 82,000 of these vehicles worldwide, and the tab for that ran about $900 million because they didn't just patch it, they replaced the entire battery on every single unit. And until yours got that new pack, the instruction was simple. Park it outdoors, away from your house, away from any structure. Now here's my advice: if you're out shopping the used market and you spot a 2019 or 2020 Kona Electric at a price that looks too good, you make that seller show you the battery replacement paperwork. No paperwork, no deal. Walk away. Number 11, the Kia Seltos and the Kia Sportage, model years 2023 and 2024. And I want you to pay close attention here, because this one proves something important. It is not just the electric cars. These are ordinary gas burners, and they've got a fire problem too. Kia recalled 39,000 of them over a faulty electric oil pump. Now the trouble sits in what they call the idle stop and go system, the thing that shuts your engine off at a red light to save a thimble of fuel. There's a capacitor in there, and that capacitor can overheat, short itself out, and start a fire. They logged 6 separate incidents of components melting. And the defect lands on vehicles built between October of 2022 and June of 2023, which means it slipped through undetected for 8 solid months of production before anybody caught it. The order is the same tune we're going to hear over and over today. Park it outside until the dealer swaps out that oil pump assembly, and some of these folks are waiting 2 to 3 months just for the part to come in. Now I want you to chew on that stop and go system for a minute, because it burns me up. That whole gadget exists to shut your motor off at a stoplight and save you a few drops of fuel so the manufacturer can brag about a better mileage number on the sticker. Nobody asked for it. And to pull off that little trick they had to add an electric oil pump and a bank of electronics to keep the oil pressure up while the engine naps. More parts, more heat, more things to fail. On an old truck, the oil pump was a simple mechanical piece bolted to the engine, spinning whenever the engine spun, and it would outlast the whole vehicle. They took something dead reliable and made it a fire hazard, chasing a rounding error on a fuel economy test. Number 10, the Ram 2500 and 3500 heavy-duty trucks, model years 2022 through 2024. Now this one is personal to me because these are Cummins diesel trucks, and I've had my hands inside a Cummins more times than I can count. Ram recalled 30,665 of them for a fire risk in the intake heater grid relay. 6 confirmed fires on these. 5 of them started while the truck was running, but one, and this is the one that matters, one started after the ignition was shut off. That tells you a short, and that relay can start a fire in a parked truck with no warning at all. And understand what these trucks are. These are $60,000 to $80,000 work rigs. Contractors depend on them. Farmers depend on them. And here's the ugly part. And this recall grew out of 2 earlier campaigns from back in 2021, which means Ram knew about trouble in this area for years before this came around. Years. Let me tell you what that intake heater grid actually is, since I've serviced plenty of them. On a diesel, cold mornings are hard on starting, so they put an electric grid in the intake to warm the incoming air and help the fuel light off. It pulls a big load of current to do that job, and it runs through a relay to switch that current on and off. When that relay goes bad, it can weld itself shut or arc across the contacts, and now you've got serious amperage running through a part that's failing and getting hotter by the second, sometimes with the truck sitting dead in the driveway. A part that's supposed to help you on a cold morning turns around and burns the truck down. That's the kind of thing that makes an old wrench like me shake his head. Number 9, the Hyundai Tucson, the Palisade, and the Sonata, all 2023. And wouldn't you know it, we're back to that same oil pump problem, just wearing different clothes on different models. 4 incidents of heat damage on these. About 52,000 vehicles caught up in the August 2023 recall. The electronic controller inside that oil pump can overheat even when the vehicle is sitting there switched off, and a fire could start with no warning to tell you it's coming. Now these were brand new vehicles. People drove them off the lot proud and then watched the resale value fall through the floor once word got around. Some insurers even started nudging premiums up on them. That's what a fire recall does to a car you just paid full freight for. And I'll tell you, the oil pump controller trouble on these Hyundais is the same rotten idea we talked about with the Kia, just wearing a different badge. An electronic brain running an oil pump, sitting there powered up and generating heat even after you've walked away and locked the door. On my old trucks, when the key came out, the vehicle went dead, truly dead. Nothing drawing power, nothing warming up, nothing thinking. These modern rigs never really go to sleep, and that's exactly why they can burn cold in your garage at 2 in the morning while you're sound asleep upstairs. Number 8, the BMW 3 Series, the X3, the X4, the Z4, and the 5 Series, model years 2019 through 2022. And I'll throw in the Toyota Supra too, because that car shares parts with these BMWs. The safety folks filed recall number 25 B636 back in September of 2025, and it covered 196,355 vehicles. Big number. The culprit here is a starter motor relay supplied by a company called Denso. That relay corrodes when it gets exposed to water, and once it corrodes, you get electrical shorts, overheating, and fire, whether you're driving down the road or parked in your driveway with the ignition off. Now here's the part I find rich. BMW figured only about 0.1% of these cars were actually affected, but they couldn't tell you which ones, so they had to recall every last one of them. They're handing out a redesigned starter relay for free, and the advisory is urgent, park it outside. And that Toyota Supra I mentioned, 1,469 of them share the very same component and got swept into the same mess. Number 7, the Hyundai Tucson again, model years 2022 through 2024, but this is a completely different problem than the one we already talked about. This time it's the trailer wiring. Nechta recalled 51,587 Tucson SUVs because the tow hitch wiring harnesses the dealers installed weren't sealed up properly, that let water creep into the trailer control module. Water gets in there, you get moisture, moisture leads to shorts, and shorts lead to fire. 3 confirmed fires on this one, and here's the kicker that most people don't grasp. You don't even need a trailer hooked up for this to bite you. That wiring stays live and active whether there's a trailer back there or not. On top of the fire risk, it can knock out your trailer brake lights too. Same instruction as always, park it outside until it's fixed. Number 6, the Chevrolet Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV, model years 2017 through 2022. Now buckle up, because this is one of the most expensive electric vehicle recalls in the whole history of the automobile. General Motors recalled every single Bolt they built in that stretch, and that came to about 142,000 vehicles at a cost of roughly $1.8 billion. At least 12 battery fires broke out in parked vehicles, and some of those cars had been sitting still for days before they lit up. When the engineers ran it down, they found 2 rare manufacturing flaws from LG showing up in the same battery cell at once: a torn anode tab and a folded separator, both together. Now think about the odds on that. A separator is a thin sheet inside the cell whose only job is to keep the positive and negative sides from touching. If it folds, they can touch. Pair that with a torn tab, and you've got 2 independent defects lining up in the very same cell, and either one alone is bad news. That's how tight the margins are inside these batteries. A flaw you'd need a microscope to spot, buried in a pack with hundreds of cells, and it can take the whole car with it. And just like some of the others, 2 of these fires happened even after the recall repair was supposedly done. GM told owners to park outside, quit charging overnight, hold your charge to 90%, and keep the car at least 50 feet away from any building. Some cities got so nervous they restricted or outright banned bolts from parking garages. Now think about what that does to a fellow's daily life. You can't park at work if it's a covered garage. You can't leave it in the apartment lot under the building. You've got a car you paid for that half the places in town don't want sitting still. The resale value cratered, and General Motors killed the model off entirely before eventually bringing back a redesigned version. Number 5, the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, model years 2017 through 2021. And this one, folks, this one is a comedy of errors if it weren't so dangerous. This vehicle got recalled 3 separate times. Once in 2020, again in 2022, and a third time in 2024. And here's why that third one had to happen. The 2022 remedy failed. 7 more fires broke out in vehicles that had already been fixed. There were 19,516 of these caught in it, and 4 people went to the hospital for smoke inhalation. The root cause traces back to a folded or torn anode tab, plus a second factor that the safety people still haven't fully pinned down. Stellantis actually came out and admitted the software fix they'd pushed was not effective. Some of these fires happened while the vans were switched off, some while they were charging. And it got so serious that a ferry operating on Lake Michigan flat out banned the 2017 through 2021 Pacifica hybrids from riding across. When a boat won't let your minivan on board, that ought to tell you something. Picture it. You're a family that bought a hybrid minivan to be responsible, to save a little fuel hauling the kids around, and now you're the one vehicle they wave out of the ferry line while everybody else drives on. That's the reputation these fires earn a vehicle, and it doesn't wash off. Number 4, the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe, model years 2022 through 2026. Stellantis recalled 91,844 of these over a high-voltage battery defect, and it's the very same Samsung-supplied problem that plagues the Wrangler 4xe we'll get to shortly. Now, these owners paid good money, $65,000 to $75,000 a copy. Across the whole family of Jeep 4xe models, CNN counted 19 total fires. These start right in the high-voltage battery pack, coming from damaged cell separators inside. And here we go again. The software remedies they rolled out back in 2023 and 2024 weren't fully effective, and 9 fires broke out in vehicles that had already been repaired, with at least 1 injury among them. A permanent fix is still being developed as we speak. In the meantime, owners are told don't charge it and park it outside, which means, think about this, you bought a plug-in hybrid and now you can't even use the electric mode. You're hauling that dead battery weight around for nothing. Number 3, the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. And now we're talking about battery fires, specifically model years 2020 through 2025. This is part of a truly massive recall. 375,000 Jeep plug-in hybrids all called back in November of 2025. The Wrangler 4xe piece of that came to 228,221 vehicles. The trouble is Samsung SDI battery separator damage, and that can spark a fire whether the Jeep is parked or rolling down the highway. And listen to this. This is the third recall for the same exact defect. The fixes from 2023 and 2024 both failed. 9 fires in vehicles that had already been repaired, 1 injury. Owners are told to stop charging and park it away from any structure. Now here's the bitter joke of it. They tell you the battery risk drops once the pack is drained down. So the safest way to own this plug-in hybrid is to never plug it in, which defeats the entire reason you bought the thing. Number 2, the Volvo EX30, model years 2025 and 2026. And this one stings a little different because this is a brand new vehicle, and it's a Volvo, a company that built its whole name and reputation on safety. On January 12th of 2026, they issued a U.S. recall covering 40 of the model year 2025 EX30S over a battery defect. What's happening inside is microscopic lithium plating growth in certain cells, and that growth causes internal short circuits and fire risk. The batteries in question were made by a company called Sunwoda over in China. Now over in Australia, they recalled 2,815 of these, while here in the States it was just 40 units. Owners are told to park it outside, hold the charge to 70%, and wait for a fix that isn't even finalized yet. And capping the charge at 70% knocks the usable range down from about 275 miles to something like 190 or 195. So you paid for the range and you can't use all of it, Volvo of all companies. That's how you know this problem reaches everybody. And now, number 1. And this is the one that really takes the cake because it's the Jeep Wrangler 4xe again, the same vehicle we already covered, but this is a completely different and frankly worse problem. This time it's engine block fires. Back in November of 2025, Consumer Reports documented 36 fires and 3 injuries tied to catastrophic engine failures on these. The recall, numbered 25B766, covers the 2023 through 2025 Grand Cherokee 4xe and the 2024 and 2025 Wrangler 4xe. And here's what's going on. The engine blocks weren't cleaned properly after they were cast at the factory. That left sand and casting debris inside the engine. That debris restricts the oil flow, and once your oil can't move the way it's supposed to, you get internal damage, engine failure, and in some cases fire. Some owners got a little warning, a knocking sound, or a check engine light. Plenty of others got nothing at all before it let go. And for some of these vehicles, this is the 4th recall they've been hit with. Now sit with this for a second. If you own a Wrangler 4xe, you are staring down 2 completely separate park outside warnings on the same truck at the same time. One for the battery catching fire and one for the engine catching fire. 2 independent ways for one single vehicle to burn, and both of them serious enough for the federal government to tell you not to park it in your own garage. So what do you actually do about all this? Let me give you the straight steps, the ones I'd tell my own family. First thing, go to nhtsa.gov/recalls and punch in your VIN. That's your vehicle identification number, and it'll tell you in about 10 seconds whether your ride is caught up in any of this. If you get a do not park inside warning, you follow it, every bit of it. No arguing with it because it's inconvenient. Get yourself on the dealer's repair list early, and I mean early, because parts are limited, and the folks who wait are the ones sitting outside for months. Document everything, every phone call, every date, every part number. Take a hard look at your insurance and make sure you've got real coverage for fire and for defect situations. And if you're buying used, you run that VIN before you hand over a dime, and you verify that any recall repairs were actually completed, not just promised. Because here's the bottom line, and it's the thing I've been saying for years. These machines have gotten so complicated that even the people who build them can't always tell you which one is going to burn. An old, simple vehicle you could trust to sit quiet in your barn. A lot of these new ones you can't even trust in your own driveway. So check your VIN, respect the warnings, and keep your family and your home out of harm's way. That's just common sense, and common sense never went out of style. You take care of yourselves out there, and I'll see you in the next one.